like we agreed, we're going to talk about gender abolition and gender roles. So I think let's just quickly go over the initial proposition. I think the initial proposition should be like, are gender roles good, bad? Do they serve a purpose or do they not? Is it something that we should stick to, or is it something we should remove? Something like that. Are you guys both okay with that?
Sure. Yeah, I don't care. It's it's her prop. So whatever her opening is, it regardless of that, it's fine with me. That's
okay, Neeina, would you mind going first? I mean, no one's really the challenger here since I was kind of set up this debate, but I mean, if you don't want to, we can have Andrew go first. But I think yeah, I think it will make sense for you to go first, so Andrew could understand your position better, and then he can respond to it.
Sure. There's a lot of intricacies of gender abolition that I don't know how much I feel need to be brought up necessarily, but the main premise of it is generally the elimination of gender roles. There's more complicated aspects of it as well that go into a lot of like very theoretical philosophical conversations, which I imagine that's not very fun to talk about, but
it's fun for me to talk about. But
okay, well, we can absolutely talk about that.
Whatever you want. I think your position.
Wait, Andrew, but this is opening thoughts. Like, let her make her opening statement.
Wait, I didn't even know we were live. I thought we were still hashing out. We were still hashing out what we were talking about.
Oh, I thought, okay, no, it's fine. We can hash it out before we get into that. Yeah, I've been live. So you guys want to quickly establish this, and then we'll get into it.
No, I'm good. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't even realize. I didn't even know we were live. So
no apology necessary. Okay, yeah, Neeina, continue.
Okay. So what I find appealing to gender abolition is obviously the abolition of gender roles. I think the phrasing of abolition doesn't do it any favors as a concept. It's kind of like how people like when you first see it, you're like the police abolition, you're like, oh, so there's just going to be no all of that type of thing. I think it's a great phrasing, so I don't want people to get wrapped up in what that means. It's a theory basically that is just generally saying that gender roles are pretty antiquated. They're not really very necessary, and I think they're actually at this point a hindrance. And what I mean by that is that it's a hindrance to the point of I don't know why. Like you would imagine that you'd want the best person for the job to get said job, and there's no direct line that all of a sudden because it's in this particular role that is related to you're if you're like a guy or whatever, that you're going to be better at those things, when I think that the rigid aspects of gender roles we'll kind of assume that, which I think we could hopefully agree doesn't really make sense. Like if you're going to go into a job that's maybe like, okay, I'm doing construction, maybe a guy would be better at that because of the physical aspect of it. But if we're going into a job like where most of our jobs are right now, in obviously like white collar or service industry, where we're not doing like strength based things, we're using technology, right? There really isn't any reason to have any differentiation when it comes to like careers. I think it's very toxic. To change a little bit here when it comes to gender roles, I think it's incredibly toxic to say like, oh, guys can't be stay-at-home fathers because they're not men if they can't be stay-at-home fathers. I think that is really like anti-man, personally. I think that that's really stupid, and I think that it's harmful to both men and women to have these roles where you can't do something that you want to do because you are, either a man or a woman. I think that that's like one of the worst things about gender roles is just that aspect where it's telling you what you can and you cannot do because you just are one thing. And I think that that's antiquated, stupid, and unhelpful. And I don't understand how anyone could defend that.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, so I didn't actually hear an argument of any kind for anything, not a single ought. I actually didn't even hear really a description for what is, right? Just kind of like just this nebulous, I don't really think that, like a construction worker should be barred from being a woman, or a dude should be barred from being a stay-at-home dad, which they're not. No, nobody's barred from that. I'm not exactly sure what Nina's position is. I'm not really sure Neeina has a position. Luckily, I have a fantastic position. So maybe Neeina can like play off of that. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, I have a bit of a history with Neeina. So let me kind of explain to you what this history is. It's my contention that Neeina and people like Neeina suffer from a condition where microorganisms infect their brains called neenomoids. These neenomoids get in there and start making them say and do and assert ridiculous shit that nobody cares about and makes no sense. In this particular case, the neenomoids have gotten in there and have convinced Neeina, for reasons unbeknownst to me and anybody else who has any type of logic and reason or, you know, will of any kind, that men and women are equal, which they're not equal. There is no such thing as egalitarianism. We've been over this before, but when it comes to gender itself, Neeina will tell you that she's a gender abolitionist, right? First, you have to start with the assumption, the very weak assumption in this logical chain, first and foremost, that there's a such thing as gender at all, that it's not just some sort of complete societal construction that's limited based on whatever tribe you're a part of or whatever locality that you're a part of. My contention, very simply, is that gender itself doesn't even exist, that everything that Neeina would consider to be a socially constructed gender role is actually a biologically grounded phase of sex and necessary for the perpetuation of human existence. That's what I think, but that's also because, you know, I'm a person who has some sort of grounding in these things and have thought about them over and over again. So I'd like to hear like what's Nina's thoughts on transgenderism. That would be a focus of gender, for instance, not just transgenderism, but transracialism. I'd like to hear Nina's take on that. I'd like to hear Nina's take on gender, right, as it appears that she thinks it can just be changeable and malleable, and it's not really related to sex. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Cool. Let me just give a quick statement. So I'm going to be generally hands off during this moderation. I will step in only in two situations. Number one, where it's so much over talking, no one can understand anyone. I will allow for a good amount of discourse and banter. But if it gets to the point where no one can understand anyone, I will step in. Or number two, if I feel like the conversation is completely off the rails, in which case I will try to redirect it. But generally speaking, you guys probably won't hear much from me during this debate. All right, guys, floor is yours.
I love that you use the neenomoids again.
Yeah, the neenomoids. So before the neenomoids become too overwhelming, you have to begin to dog mom drink them away with your wine cup. What do you think that gender is, Neeina?
Well, you said it didn't exist. I'm a little confused on what your stance on that is. What I think gender is a socially constructed performance, basically, that is a display to go towards like a very like either feminine or masculine interpretation of yourself.
So it doesn't exist. It's not a physical reality.
What do you
right?
mean? Does it exist? Does a play exist? Like, what do you mean?
Smell
like,
it, taste it, touch it. Does it actually exist, or is it just something that is in our brains that we make up?
You can see it. Like, what do you mean? Like,
where do you see it at?
Define what you're saying about existing, because it seems like you're being a little, ironically, nebulous about it.
No, ironically, I'm not being nebulous at all. So
I mean, like the word gender obviously exists. The phrase gender exists. The theory of gender theory exists. So, like, are you saying like? What are you trying to say exactly?
I'm trying to ask you if this thing exists as a physical reality or if it's simply an emotional manifestation or a human social construction. Meaning if all human beings were gone.
Social construction. Yeah.
Okay, if it's a human social construction, then it doesn't exist in reality. It's just made up.
I don't see that direct connection between that. Like that's like saying like words don't exist because if humans weren't there wouldn't be words.
Words do exist.
That's such a okay, because of what? Explain to me why.
Because of sound. You have sound and interpreters which interpret the sound. And so you have physical existence.
Okay, but if humans don't exist, then you're kind of like giving me if a tree falls in the wood, would it make a sound argument here? Like that's just
no, I'm not giving you that. Let me try to help you out here, right? All I'm looking to establish from you, because you are a gender abolitionist, meaning you want to abolish gender. I'm just trying to establish if gender is real or if it's not real. If it exists in tangible reality, or if it's just some made up shit that you're trying to abolish.
Literally everything is made up if we're talking about language. So I think that we're kind of on this level right now, and I think that
No,
it's
not
kind of silly
everything.
for you to
Not
make that
everything is
argument.
made up when we're talking about language. What do you mean? That's absurd. Makes no sense.
Because,
There's all kinds of things in language that isn't made up, right? That is a physical
what?
manifestation that you can
No,
look
but
at.
language itself is made up.
Yes, you could say that the process is a social construction. That's fine. So that's made up. Got it. Right. So I'm just trying to figure out, you want to abolish this thing. Is this thing real that you want to abolish to begin with?
Andrew, just to quickly clarify your position for the chat, you believe sex is real, but gender is made up, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
cool.
a biological reality. And so
Okay.
what I think is that all these social behaviors that Neeina thinks are related to you're a man or you're a woman. Okay. And these are genders. So this is the way she perceives it. She says, if X amount of traits are masculine, that's manly. If X amount of traits are feminine, then that's womanly, right? This is the way that she perceives this. So I'm saying
Can we clarify?
Hang on, let me clarify my position. I'm almost done.
Okay,
and then I'll pass the floor over to you. What I'm saying specifically is that the way that human beings interact with their environment is directly associated with their sex. So their sex and how they react with their environment is going to create the relationship of what you consider to be masculine or feminine via necessity. Things like short hair, wearing jewelry, all of these things are actually manifestations that are necessities for men in order to get along in whatever their environment is. So you can say like short hair for a military haircut, lack of jewelry because your hands get caught in things, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's almost always a practical explanation and application, which is environmental, which manifests itself as to why it is that these behaviors exist, rather than the fact that it's just, we just made up these social roles one day and we need to reverse engineer them so that now we're equal. That's bizarre.
Okay. It's funny that you mentioned jewelry, because that used to be a very masculine trait to wear a bunch of jewelry. So I feel like a lot of like the history that we look back on traits of both men and or I guess like we're going to be like biological females, biological men, whatever. Like what was considered of traditionally like biological females would, wear dress, biological men, whatever. All of like the dress, the way that they'd act, like all of those behaviors have changed like so many times throughout history that I'd find it very odd for you to say that like, oh, there isn't like a cultural sense of a gendered expectation to be one sort of way because it relates to your sex. Sorry. And you're going to tell me that like wearing jewelry is more feminine? Like, I don't really know where you're at with that.
Depends on what the environmental setup was that caused that behavior to become integrated with masculine or feminine behavior.
So you're then telling me that it's socially conditioned, right? Because it has to have to do with your environment.
Well, it's not just socially conditioned. I'm saying that there's a biological catalyst for it. So,
well, then why have things been the opposite throughout time? Like
they haven't been the opposite
jewelry
throughout
used to
time.
been a very masculine thing to have a lot of jewelry.
Yeah, it could be that the environmental manifestation for this becoming something that's masculine is that jewelry was extremely rare. And so for men to establish dominance over other men via wealth, they would wear their actual wealth. That could be one explanation for why that's a manifestation of environment with sex. But it always, if you look for a descriptor of why these things end up happening, why we make these associations, you can always whittle it back to the biological sex of the person and people group engaging with material reality, okay, and the environment, and those creating the social behaviors via necessity. Even right now, that's the case.
Via necessity? What do you mean when you say via necessity?
So there's some reason for it that is environmental, and their biology intersects with the environment, and that's the reason that these behaviors start.
Why is there a biological reason to wear jewelry?
I just gave you the example.
Kind
what was my example that I just gave you? Neeina, repeat it back to me of how that could be the case, that men would find it to be good to wear a lot of jewelry at certain points in history. Why would they think that? as a possibility.
I assume because they just like the way it looks.
Well, because they just wanted
I don't know,
to.
like a status symbol, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, status symbol, right? So the biological human male behavior of being a dominant over one another. One of the ways in which you can show your dominance is with displays of wealth. So if you have a display of wealth, in this case, jewelry, of course, it would be considered masculine, or maybe stylistics, or maybe clothing, or all sorts of different trends. But all of it is dictated around the biology of both the male and the females interacting with their environment. So I'm saying that these aren't just characteristics of people who have like, oh, I think that pink is just pretty, so we consider it feminine. It's way more complex than that.
Okay, so it seems like you're just kind of going in a circle, trying to weirdly like kind of agree with me that you are saying it's just socially conditioned. Then you understand what social conditioning means, right?
Well, no, it's not just socially conditioned. It would be the opposite of just socially conditioned. I'm saying that there's actually biological functions which make these social conditions. Let me give you an example of how I know that that's true. Can you name a place on planet Earth where men or women predominantly act as the protectors and act as the physical arm and act as the strength of whatever the tribe or nation is? And that this is purposeful.
I have no idea what this has to do with jewelry. Can we stand
Well,
here?
because what I'm saying is that anywhere on planet Earth, there's a biological reality that there's a huge difference between men and women. And one of those huge differences is the interaction with environment is that men are far stronger. So they almost always, no, not even almost always, they always end up moving into those roles by necessity. That's the way their biology interacts with the environment and why the social behavior begins to begin with.
Okay, so why would they wear jewelry then?
I just gave you the example.
No,
I literally just gave you the example.
No, but why did you relate that to the jewelry conversation we were just having? I don't understand your logic here. Like you're saying, like, oh, because dudes
biology,
like, are, like,
the way biology
interacts
with environment is what actually creates what you consider gender. That's
what do you mean by that? Very specifically, what do you mean when biology interacts with environment? Because that kind of just sounds like me that you're just literally describing like social conditioning.
I've already. Okay, is your sex socially conditioned? No, it's not. It's a biological reality, right?
Sure.
And the distinctions in these realities is that men have different hormones. They have different brain archetypes, different interests, all sorts of different things that just by itself, the hormones on average between the two create physical differences between the two, to the point where it's almost absurd to say otherwise, right? So if that's the case, if just off of the difference in chemical makeup between men and women, they then have to operate with whatever their environment is, their localized environment, whether it's, let's say, the desert, let's say the forest, let's say the Great Plains, wherever it is. The biological makeup of men and women are going to interact with those environments differently based on strength differentials, interest differentials, all of these different types of things. So the biological extension of them engaging with their environment itself is going to create these naturally distinct roles, but many of them become universalized. There's a distinction, in other words, between men and women biologically.
Okay, you're going off on a tangent here, my guy. I gotta.
Well, it's not a tangent. Like, I'm trying to explain it so a 2-year-old would understand it.
Right, but then, I mean, it's very confusing. Again, let's just keep with the jewelry conversation. If we want to keep it simple, I feel like that's the best way to go about it. Let's just stay focused on the jewelry example. So how would you explain with what you were saying about the biological relating to your environment thing with the jewelry, where there used to be a very male-centric thing to wear jewelry
or high heels could be an example.
Exactly, yes,
or any different number of stylistics.
So how is that not social if it's changed with biological men now do not tend to do that?
Because Ferraris didn't exist, Neeina. Because they displayed their wealth in a different way, Neeina. Obviously, that's why. Because they didn't have. Neeina, stop. Let me finish. I'm trying to finish. Because they weren't able to peacock with their Ferrari or their Lamborghini or their giant mansion or this type of thing. But it's the same. It was the same thing. It's a demonstration of wealth for dominance or to attract the female or whatever.
Okay, so why don't modern guys just
They do peacock.
I mean, like, there is an ass, right? But what? Okay, so then why aren't they wearing heels?
Well, no. What they do now is they get their legs broken. They get their legs broken, and then have their legs extended so that they appear taller instead of wearing heels. They literally get their legs broken now, Neeina, because of science. Because science allows them. Let me finish, Neeina. You asked me a question. You need to let me finish the answer. Literally, men will get their legs broken and then reconstructed so that they appear to be taller. This was the same reason that it used to be stylish for men to wear lifts. They weren't directly high heels, but they were lifted shoes so that they appeared taller.
Wait, but if they're status symbols, that doesn't really make any sense, right? Because I assume the idea that the heels were a status symbol was because they were expensive to make.
That could be one reason. If you're talking about
the breaking the legs thing, if you can't tell that you paid for that, then how is that a status symbol?
Okay, listen. I'm saying that it's both and. It could be both and. So it could be that they want to appear taller. Could be that they want to appear taller, so they wear boots, for instance, maybe lifted boots or lifted shoes, or they have their legs broken to extend their height, or they wear certain shoes which are completely non-functional in reality, but are god-awful expensive, and they want to wear those as a status symbol, which many men do that as well. So all of these different reasons, in other words, are extensions of the biological reality of men's behavior being different. So to summarize this, gender is a direct expression of biological sex interacting with environment.
I mean, I don't really want to keep going on with circles in this, but like, you're really just literally describing like social factors here. So I think like you're kind of posting a little bit about the sex being related to it. I'm sure things like have like a very small degree of relation depending on like your biology, I guess. But I mean, which one do you think is more powerful? Like, what do you think about the whole because we kind of wanted to bring this up.
Yeah, that is true. Your audio is desynced, by the way. You might want to log out and log back in.
What's the issue?
Her audio is desynced.
Is it?
I didn't know.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe that's on you. I mean, Alex, is your audio desynced? You're just trying to.
It sounds fine for me.
No, it's not. It doesn't. It's not a sound issue.
She's seeing my video and my audio.
I know. No, I'm saying I don't see it. Chad,
here, look straight at the camera and say test 1, 2, 3, so Alex can see for himself.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Did you see that?
Okay, there's a little bit of a lag. Yeah, it's minor, but yeah, if you want to log back in, it's fine. But it's not significant. But it's up to you.
Like you're just trying to say that to throw me off my game. I mean, I'll just do it right in the mic.
It's unnecessary for me to do anything to throw you off your game, Neeina. It's completely unnecessary.
I mean, the fact that I'm running it through OBS might be the reason why, and I'm not going to fix that. So it's as long as it's
it's fine. It's not significant.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, where were we at, Mr. Distracting?
You were about to ask me a question.
Yeah, can you give me the context? You're the one who distracted me.
The context for your question? I have no idea
what we were talking about previously, my guy.
Well, I don't know, my girl.
You guys were talking about
doing some like sneaky shit right now?
I don't know what your question was going to be.
You guys were talking about status symbols and how like back then they used to wear heels, now they don't. And,
right.
You were making arguments because of technology. I think you were going to give some counterpoint to that or ask him a question. I don't know.
Right. I remember saying something about like not wanting to go in circles about this, but
as you collect your thoughts and find your next cup of wine, I'll crack a beer here while you figure out what it is that you wanted to ask me. So one more time to state my position: gender is a direct expression of biological sex interacting with environment.
Oh, I thought you said it didn't exist.
One more time, what you're calling gender. It's an internal critique. Gender. Yes, it's an internal critique, Neeina.
Okay, but then it kind of tracks in some way because it seems like you're stating exactly what a socially conditioned thing is. So I think we're kind of in agreement on this. I guess we're just choosing to.
No, it's not
say
socially
it.
conditioned. One more time, to repeat my position.
No,
back
it's
to
a
me.
social structure. I'm not saying it's socially conditioned. I think it's a social structure. It's just like a social
Based
thing.
on
Literally, it's you reacting with your environment. That's what a social thing is.
Let me clarify this because I think I understand Andrew's position. So Andrew's saying that your gender is always going to be the same as your sex. The whole concept of a gender social construct, because you cannot have a different gender than your sex, right? It's the same thing. Gender really means sex, right? Correct, Andrew?
Yes, that's correct. They're interchangeable terms, literally interchangeable terms.
Right. And Neeina, I believe you don't believe that. I believe you can have a difference between gender and sex. And I believe that gender, for example, is something that's not necessarily 100% reliant on sex, right? So that's kind of the crux of it.
Yeah, it's an expression of yourself to relate to more like either feminine or, I mean, obviously in gender abolition, it is kind of unironically a little bit in agreement with the fact that it doesn't exist. You're kind of like going full circle on this, where you actually align more with like the more radical theories of gender abolition that would actually agree with what you're saying, where it is just a bunch of like social relations between like between your sex and the way that you're perceived. But I feel like what we're missing here is the understanding of what modern versions of like gender is and the subtleties of what it would look like gender abolition in the future would look like versus what it is now. Because I know you wanted to talk about like, you know, transness and stuff like that. And I think that it's really interesting conversation to have, but I just want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying when I do say things like you're kind of going like full circle to being a little bit like of a gender abolitionist yourself, where
I can't
some
abolish
extent,
a thing which doesn't exist.
Okay, but you're using the word, so the point is to change what it would.
That's because the word is completely synonymous with the word sex. I mean the same exact thing. When people in the modern times say the word gender, they actually mean the word sex. They've always meant it this way. They have never meant it as a set value of behaviors between the two sexes. They've always meant it as just being sex. So if you go back to the 90s and you play Baldur's Gate and it says select a gender, it's asking you to select a sex. It's not asking you to select a carefully assorted bunch of traits that you think are associated with a woman. It's literally asking you to pick a sex.
Right,
that's what it means by gender.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, like, yeah, Baldur's Gate, very good factual statement there.
No, everything you could
no,
possibly imagine for the word gender, which has always been used since its inception by John Money.
Does your driver's license
by John Money? Your driver's license doesn't ask you for gender; it asks you for sex.
Right. So, like an actual government.
Yeah, but John Money came up with the modern conceptualization of gender. And when it was introduced out into the ethos and people began to use it, they used it as a synonym for sex. It was never used as a trait-specific characterization for X amount of female behaviors or what we perceive as female behaviors in whatever society you are makes you a woman. That's insane and has never been the truth. Ever.
Right. You guys disagree about what gender is. That's the part.
Well, yeah, he's saying it is. Okay, so you said you want to talk about gender roles then, and if you're going to tell me that gender doesn't exist, where are we at on that one?
Well,
so are there sex roles?
You think that gender is a separate conceptualization of sex. I do not. If you're going to make the claim, though, that gender and sex is the same thing, then we are in agreement, and you could just concede the debate.
Didn't say that.
Well, then make an argument.
I asked you a question about what are gender roles to you then?
Well, there's no such. I just told you there's no such thing. There's just sexes interacting with their environment. There's male and female. That's it. That's all there is.
Okay, so you just refuse to accept the idea that there are gender roles? Because I've talked to you before, my guy. Like, that's not what your position was back.
Why don't you tell me what my position was before?
Well, you thought that gender roles were a good thing.
Really? Why don't you point out any place I've ever said anything of the sort? When we're, especially gender roles, it's absurd on its face. There's just sex. There's biological sex. There's nothing outside of that. There never has been anything outside of that. Anything that you consider to be this set value group of feminine or masculine traits is nothing more than an extension of your actual baseline biology.
Okay, so what does that mean?
You just make up a word in your head in order to accommodate
Which
like
is-
this small group of mentally ill people, basically, nothing else.
Which is who?
In this case, transgenders.
What does that have to do with gender roles?
Well, because they're trying to change their gender, Neeina. They say that your gender is not based on your biological sex, but whether it's a
No,
construction.
but do you
of
understand
behaviors.
what gender roles are? Gender roles have really nothing to do with trans people.
Yeah, I understand conceptually what you're saying a gender role is. Right? I'm just telling you
Okay.
that it's not some sort of movement of pushed behavior saying, if you're a girl, we expect you to act this way. Rather, it's a set of environment.
1,000% what it is.
Right. So that's the crux. Now you're getting to the crux of the disagreement. Rather, it's a biological reality of your sex engaging with environment, which creates conditions where you have to act in certain ways because to do otherwise would be in contrary to your own nature.
So you just think anyone that doesn't go with whatever, I don't know, sex roles you want to call it? Like, okay, so for example, like if somebody doesn't want to have children or like doesn't want to take care of the children, you know, or a cis woman doesn't want to take care of
You
the
mean a
children
woman.
and wants to just work.
Just a woman, you mean?
A cis woman.
Woman.
Yes, a cis woman, yes.
What makes her
Okay.
cis?
The fact that her gender identity aligns with her sex.
What does that
That's what
mean?
this
Your
means.
gender identity. So if that's true, then
How do you
what makes
perceive yourself?
what makes Alex White
I don't know who that is.
the guy who's hosting the debate? What makes him white?
Oh, I didn't know your last name. Sorry.
His first
Dogs.
name is Alex. What do you talk? It's in
What do you
bold.
think?
It's in bold. His name is in bold. It's ALEA. You can't miss it.
How the fuck am I going to assume that? I thought there's
You
plenty of
guys-
other
I'm
people
gonna
named
assume you
Alex.
can read,
Oh, you see
Neeina.
Alex Jones? I'm going to assume that it's Alex, like him? Like, what the
Don't
fuck are you talking
assume
about?
what makes Alex the guy whose name
Wow,
is
so
Alex
desperate, huh?
in a big bold letters ALEX. What makes him white? What makes him white, Neeina?
Oh, I thought you were saying his last name was White. Jesus
No.
fuck, sorry.
Like, why? Like
That's
this-
not at all what we were talking about. I was not misunderstanding. My bad. I thought you said what makes Alex white, and then just like stop talking. What makes him white? Like what the fuck does that have to do with like your gender identity?
Well, because is it just an identity that he's white?
Well, I mean, whiteness in itself is more of a metric of like power. Like as we know, obviously in the past, like even like Germans weren't considered white back in the day.
So
like,
can he
this
change?
is like 101
so,
stuff.
hang on. So can he change himself being white as an identity?
Okay, as I said, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about when it comes
Yeah, it
to
does.
like
It does have it's
curtailing
one
to
for one.
mass.
It's
Wait, so you think that race is same as sex? That's
No,
what you're
Neeina.
trying to argue
No,
right now.
Neeina,
Yes,
I'm
that's
saying that
100% what you're trying to argue
well,
right now.
I'm saying that biologically, if you think that white is not biological but rather a social construction, and gender is just a status of identity and has nothing to do with biology, then I need you to tell me if you can change your gender, this socially constructed thing that we perceive women as. Can you change your race the same way?
In the same way as in how?
As in, can Alex begin to identify as a black man, and would it be true?
I mean, if you're gonna talk about like if he's like related to the black community, he can obviously have like a more of a feeling of more belonging to that group of people. But I don't know what you're trying to say with that. Like if we're talking
Can he
about
get
like does he
affirmative
identify
action?
as
Can he get
black?
affirmative?
Like
Can he get
that'd be
affirmative
very
action?
silly.
Can he get affirmative
You get
action if he identifies as black? Let's say he's raised in the black community, okay, and he has adopted the entirety of their culture and their norms,
Oh my god.
and he identifies as being black. Can he get affirmative action?
He has a humongous schlong.
Yeah, can he get affirmative action, Neeina?
I don't believe that is how that works. No.
No, that's not how it works. However, in your mind,
Legally,
this
of
gender
course.
role switch, you think that trans
Uh-huh.
women should be considered actual
but
biological. Hang on,
you-
let me
you
finish, Neeina.
can't-
Let me finish.
No, but I'm
Neeina.
talking about reality
Neeina,
here. I
I'm
mean, like
talking
you've
about
been
reality
talking way
too.
more than I have. Come
I'm
on, guys.
trying to just finish
just
my
saying,
point,
like,
and I'll give it to you. But let me
okay.
finish my point.
my God.
Neeina. Let me finish my point. So how this is one for one analogous is you think that trans women should be afforded all of the same rights as biological women. So I want to know if you think that people who just identify as a different race should also be afforded the same status as that race.
Rights? I think everyone should have the same rights. Absolutely. What the fuck?
So hang on. You think that woman is a legitimate protected class, right?
Is it? I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, of course. They have their own sports leagues.
Woman
they have
is
their
a protected
own,
class.
They have their own
Wait, do you
sports
understand
leagues,
what a
their own
protected
gyms,
class
they have their
is?
own everything.
I don't think you know what a protected class is.
What is it, Neeina?
You're talking a protected class is something you could like, like hate crimes.
Yeah.
That's what usually is considered under the protected class laws.
Yeah, like Christianity would be a protected class.
Yeah, sure.
Different races would be a protected class. Women would operate under a protected class. They're going to have different considerations for women when they apply for college, when they apply for STEM fields, when they apply for these different things. They have their own forms of affirmative action for women. They're a protected class. So what I'm asking you specifically is if Alex can change his race, if race is socially constructed, if it's a social construct.
They're not a protected class.
Oh, man. Okay, fine, Neeina. They're not a protected class. Either way, can Alex change his race and get the same protection of class that blacks would have?
I don't think you can change your race. I don't know how that would go. I don't think there's any mechanism for it. You can. I don't know if you know this, but on your ID, you can. If we're just talking like legal stuff, right? So if we're talking about like if you change your, you can actually change your ID to say that you're female, and then you are able to get certain like if we're talking about like grants that maybe like people can get from being or tax breaks or whatever for being women-owned business. Which again, I don't necessarily agree with affirmative action to begin with. So I don't really know how much that you think that's a gotcha. But like I personally don't necessarily even have a very strong feeling about that affirmative action is positive. I'm kind of on the fence about it personally.
Well, whether it's positive or not, try to understand why this is analogous. Because you're saying to me that gender is an identity.
But you keep saying what I think, and I don't think that because I don't really like affirmative action to begin with.
You just said gender is a form of identity.
Yes,
it's self-ID. So it's self-ID.
Self-ID? Is that like a
yes? It's how you identify yourself. That's what gender is. Sure. Okay, so how come race, which is a form of social construction, is also not interchangeable as a self-ID?
Because I don't think that people of different races have any, generally like intrinsic differences outside of cultural ones, of course. So.
Yeah. So then if that's true, why couldn't you just identify as being that race because it makes you feel better and be treated as though you're that race?
I mean, you could. I just don't know what the treatment would be different. If you wanted to identify as black, what do you think? How would your life be different?
So here's how your life.
Is it just because you want to say the N-word or what? Like how would it change?
It would be completely different. The things that you could qualify for from the state would be totally different. Affirmative action would be totally different. All of these things would be totally different. The same as if you in your case, you say if you identify as a woman, you can go into Neeina. Don't ask me a question and then 2 seconds into the answer, you cut in. Just relax a second. Same thing as if a woman or a man decides he wants to go into women's locker rooms and self-IDs as a man, suddenly has the extended courtesy that he can just go and shower with women and this kind of thing. Okay, so you're saying that, hey, none of that matters. It's all just a conceptualization of self-identity. It's like, well, obviously it's not just a conceptualization of self-identity, because if that's the case, then you'd have to bite the bullet on race.
I don't feel like I'd have to do that because so
can Alex get affirmative action if he walks around in blackface, Neeina? Can he get affirmative action if he puts on blackface and gives himself cornrows and says I'm black?
That's an interesting point to bring up because does Alex identify as black? Let's play into what you're saying. Does he identify as black?
Yeah, but let's assume he did.
Okay, but does he?
No, I'm sure he doesn't. But who cares?
Okay, then so it doesn't really track now.
I identify as Asian, actually.
Okay, but you don't.
Sure.
But I think that's what a lot of people like you guys like mixed up a little bit with
operating
this.
within the world of he is though. He is, for the sake of this hypothetical, we're just going to assume that he is.
Right, but what I'm saying is like I think that there's a lot of subtlety there with if you're really going to talk about like it depends. Like I'm half Japanese and I'm half white. Like I could maybe identify more with one side. I identify more with my white side. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, is that like something that doesn't track like consistently? Like,
Well,
I
no,
don't really
hang on,
think
it
at
does.
a certain
No.
level it really matters that much.
Let her finish her point. Please.
Well, when she says, "Do you
Right, I did
think
ask a question.
X?" When she says, "Do you think X?" That's a question.
Right? Can you answer the question?
Yeah. So that both those things are pointing to biological structures, right? You are white and Japanese.
Biological. Okay,
Yeah.
so do you think that people are significantly biologically different the same way that men and women are biologically different of being different races?
I think that the significant standard's irrelevant. That if you're just going off of like a racial construction of certain clusters of people look very similar, and therefore they're treated in certain ways due to the similar lookingness or whatever. In this
but
particular
you're trying to relate that to race, right?
I'm trying to just relate it to
figure out where
self-ID.
you're at with this.
Just relating it to self-ID. So in this case, you just self-identified as half Japanese, half white. You don't believe that these are intrinsic biological categories, but rather they're social categories, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so then if that's true, and these aren't biological categories, they're just completely made up social constructions, why can't you identify as black?
Well, I don't really know what the reason to. This is why I'm saying like you need to know the reason behind it. Like I don't like if you grew up around like again like in a very black community, you could identify with that particular group significantly more, but that's not going to change your skin color. So like if we're talking about things
So
like
there's a biological element.
No. If we're talking about things like reparations and stuff like that, what we need to be addressing here is why were those things put in place? Why was affirmative action put in place? It was not to directly like because your melanin level is a certain level that you just get this like this branch or whatever. What we're really talking about is how were these people's ancestors treated, right? And I think that as we go on, this thing will not be as important as it is to be racially divided in the ways that we are right now. But I think that what you're getting caught up on is like these structures that already exist. For example, like, and again, I have mixed feelings on affirmative action, and we can absolutely talk about that if you want to, assuming Alex is okay with that. But I have very complicated opinions on that as well. But I don't think that this tracks directly one-on-one here when it comes to sex and gender, because I think that when we really talk about like race, like what does being black mean? What does being white mean? Like those then do become like a very socialized thing, which I think you're trying to get at with this, and that's fair. But I think that the subtlety, you're trying to be very simplistic about like, you're all of a sudden gonna be like, he can just like say the N-word. Like, what is identifying as black mean?
Right. Okay. So I think that's a fair question, kind of, but let me just dive into it so that you understand, right? If you want to get into kind of these nuanced distinctions. So let's start with, is thing X possible? Okay. So would you agree that it's possible for Alex to put on blackface and identify as being a black man?
It is possible for him to put on blackface. Yes.
And pretend to be a black man, right?
Is identifying or pretending? I think those things are actually completely different.
Fair enough. So he can identify as then being a black man, right?
Sorry?
So he can identify as being a black man, right?
Sure.
So the question is, does that make him one?
Does that make him a black person? Again, that really is, again, when I'm talking about subtleties, is what
this is pretty
a
subtle.
Half black person who's very light, is a light-skinned person, a very, like somebody who looks like Alex, for example, who is half black. Is that person still black?
I think that socially they would be considered black, sure.
You think socially that they would be considered black? So
Yeah.
the way that people would react to them was that they would just know that he was black.
Yeah, but I think that you have the case of Barack Obama to kind of fortify what I'm saying.
No,
here,
I'm saying
right?
that he looked like Alex. Is Alex?
Yeah, so
he's
now
black?
answer my
He
question.
might be black.
So now answer my question now that I've answered yours, as you pivoted twice. Alex, if he puts on blackface
pivot.
and identify as black, you said he can do that. My follow-up question is, does it make him black?
Okay, but no, this is what you're losing here. Okay.
Answer the
We need to
question,
establish
Nina.
what
Is
being
yes
black
or
is.
no? Yes
so if
or no?
somebody
You
looks
can
like,
establish
did you
it
answer?
after you
Wait, no,
say
no,
yes
no,
or
you did
no.
not answer. You did not answer my question. If
I don't
somebody
need to
who
answer
looks
your
like
question.
Alex, so if somebody who looks like Alex is,
What?
you know, black or whatever, is so what is your level of what is black? Is it just like the skin color? Is it the history, like your ancestors? Like, what do you think black is?
I think black is how we perceive a skin color of people who largely come from the sub-Saharan African region in the United States. That's what we call
Okay, so
black.
then he would not be considered black because he doesn't have that
It's not
skin
me,
tone. Because
though.
to you, black just
Nina,
means skin
who
tone.
cares? Who cares? I'm asking you.
No, that's incredible.
the
No,
question.
no. That's incredibly important. So you're saying that black just means a skin color.
No, he's not saying that.
Okay.
He said he
Nina,
literally just said that means that you have a skin tone that is of sub-Saharan Africa.
When you're ready
Did you
now,
not just say that?
now that I've just answered multiple more
did you say
questions of
that?
yours, can we go back to mine now?
Did you just say that?
Let me one more time. I think that we associate black in the United States as individuals who you can largely identify as likely coming from the sub-Saharan African region, just due to their physiological externalities.
So you would not consider Alex, someone who looked like Alex, who's like half black, to be black then?
He's not half, but what are you talking about?
I'm saying if somebody looked like Alex, right?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't be considered black. Yes, in my framework or in socially in social framework, of course not. Now back to my question. Now that I've asked, now that I've answered all of yours, one more time back to my question. You agree that Alex can put on blackface and identify as being black. I'm going to ask you again: does that make him black in Nina's worldview? Would that make him black?
If you're right, that's why I wanted to establish this, because in your view.
Who cares about my view for the 300th time? I've already explained it. Now on to you. Answer my question.
You're not. Wait. Why does my opinion matter in this? Like, what do you mean? If when you say black, right, you mean people who physically look black? Then no. If Alex put on blackface and said that he was black, it would really depend, I guess, on the quality of it. Like, if that's like your primary level of it, like what is black, like then on your assessment of that, then I guess yes, but that's because that's your assessment. Because all it is skin tone.
What Nina's worldview? For the 300th time, I just want an answer to a question.
What you didn't ask me what.
And I answered, and I did ask you. I've asked you 6 times. I'm going to ask you again. If Alex goes in blackface, if he puts on blackface and he says he's black, is that a true statement or not in Nina's worldview? Is
it a true statement? What do you mean by true statement? Like, again, like you're just like being so nebulous in everything you're saying. A true statement about what? Like that he is all of a sudden black? And your worldview, yes.
In my worldview,
all it
yes.
is a melanin. Yeah, because all you said was that it was melanin.
He's asking about your worldview.
Okay, but then we have to establish the conversation of what like blackness is, and I think that's again like a very subtle.
Tell me what it is.
Okay. That's an interesting conversation around that. What blackface is generally related to is what I think about is like the minstrel shows of making fun of an underclass. So
whites can be black. Just as long as they're in the underclass, whites can be blacks in, or is there something?
No, I'm just talking about the historical.
Right, I understand the history.
For example, like when we're talking about like why are things like reparations a conversation? Why are things like affirmative action a conversation? It is because of the historical injustices that have been made on historically, like when like we're talking about black, like African origin people that were like enslaved. It really depends what we're talking like in America, right? In America, we are very much talking about like people who had origins to slave ownership. And then also like obviously the conversation about Jim Crow, all of that, like the injustices, like things like affirmative action, which again, interesting conversation to have, is related to like making up for the wrongs that we had made in the past as a country. Like again, as somebody who is Japanese, the wrong that happened to my family that the country made up for was obviously the internment. It doesn't mean that Japanese people coming in after the war would get like the reparations, but the systems that have been implemented at that time, like with we're talking about, like, again, affirmative action, when it has to relate to like former like the injustices that were happening with which is why I have such a complicated relationship with how I feel about affirmative action, because I think that it's kind of gotten
All right,
far
I'm
enough.
just stepping as a moderator.
No, don't step in. Let her go. Trust me, I'll bring it back around. Go ahead.
Just bring it back around.
Oh my god, you love just cutting me off. It's 'cause you
I
have
didn't
ADHD.
cut you. I didn't cut you
I do
off.
want you guys to bring it back around because this is just now getting to.
I'll bring it back around. I promise. Let her finish.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Sure. Okay. God damn it. I fucking hate getting cut off. Whatever. Just do it.
You were talking about how blackness is more of less of an indication of skin color and the social perception, and it's more of a shared lived experience based on a specific demographic experience in history. That's where you were at.
A specific demographic experience. No, I'm saying like the ancestry. I was specifically talking about how that we were talking related to affirmative action as an aspect of like something that could be taken advantage of, because I don't think that necessarily is something that we can relate to gender, because it's like so complicated in a way that the history is like, it's not the same as in like, oh, like what you could say about like the history of like gender expression. You know, like there isn't like white people weren't really like Germans weren't considered white, right? For a while. And then they were, because what it represents is to an extent like a underclass, specifically when we're talking about America. That's where a lot of that comes from. Like the one drop rule, for example. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, to get to your point. Like I'm trying to just wait for you to get to your point. I've been very patiently waiting for you to get to your point.
Okay, right. But my like entire point of when your question was related to like, oh, can he like identify as black, right? If he had like obviously like a historical relation to that community, even though he appears white, that like, yeah, sure, he could. But my problem is the blackface aspect, where I don't understand why that would be a part of the racial identity. Like, because he wouldn't have to change his physical appearance, right? If he did identify with his black roots. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So if this is true, and you're saying that these specific groups need to be isolated in order to get reparations, how are we going to isolate the groups? We would isolate them based on their physiology. That's how we do it. So if you want to know which group belongs in the camp whose ancestors were persecuted and enslaved, there's a really easy tell for that. And the easy tell for that is their biological externalities. In your particular case, you're saying if you want to apply for reparations, or you want to have some type of group reparations for things that have happened in the past, you have to have some type of biological claim to that group. That's what you're saying. I think that that's completely true. And the same thing would apply with men and women when it came to transsexuality, that you cannot adopt the identity of women as men because you do not have the required biological makeup that would put you in that group so that you could be extended those same courtesies. So in other words, you don't get to have the same type of oppression Olympics as a man who dresses up like a woman as you do as a biological woman, because you don't share the same history. Do you understand now?
You said oppression Olympics. What is that? I didn't really think that made sense in the context of what you're talking about.
What I'm saying to you specifically is that if your claim is that you have to be a part biologically of a group in order to be isolated to be considered for these things like reparations, then you're pointing at Alex and saying, Alex simply putting on blackface wouldn't be enough because he'd have to share the history of struggle and the history of ancestry and all this other stuff. Okay, fair enough. Then why would you extend the same courtesy to men who dress up as women and pretend that they share the same struggles that women shared, have the same shared history as women, have the same biological claim to womanhood? That's insane.
That doesn't make any sense. Holy fuck. Like that's like saying like, oh, because like you have a like that
It's your
logic would
worldview, so
track
if it
if we're
doesn't make
talking
sense,
about
that's
like
on you.
the. Okay, but I just don't even understand how you got that from what I was saying. You're saying that like, okay, so if
Why
he has,
else can't he be black? Other than a shared history.
because it's not
What
like
else?
it's not like every single human being is like mixed race, my guy. Every single human being is both part like of made from like a female or a male, or you know, obviously the intersex that can be involved in that as well. But like that doesn't make any sense of what you're trying to
makes
use that as.
perfect sense. Then tell me why Alex can't be black.
I don't know, Alex, are you black?
It's irrelevant to the
Let's assume for a second he identifies as being black.
It's a hypothetical. In
If
this
he
hypothetical,
identifies as being black, are you going to say
If he has
right
black
now that
ancestry and maybe he like his
No,
white
no,
passing,
that's
then
my
yeah, he
point.
might identify with being black.
That's my whole
That
point.
would be
He
fair.
doesn't. He doesn't. Assuming he doesn't have any shared history, no shared anything.
Okay,
He
but
doesn't have a single drop of biological DNA from
Okay,
the
but again, I can say
sub-Saharan
he can
Neeina,
identify.
let me finish. He has not a single drop of this of blood from the sub-Saharan African region. Okay, let's just say everything from Alex's family, for the sake of this hypothetical, comes from Scotland. Right? Doesn't matter where it comes from. Okay, but he doesn't share any genealogy whatsoever with sub-Saharan Africans.
Okay,
can you explain to me, if he puts on blackface and identifies as being black, why he's not, or can't you?
Why he's not, or can't you? I see. I mean, like, can he or can he not? Like, yeah, of course you can do that. I just don't know why you would. Like, what would the point of that be?
Would he be black at that point?
Black?
Yes.
Again, this is where I went into the definitions of that.
So the answer yes or no should be easy.
What level of consideration we're talking about black? Like,
yes,
if we're talking
no,
about, does he? If black is genetic relations to that, then no.
You're under your worldview, Neeina, not my worldview.
What?
Under your worldview, your Nina's world. We're in Nina's worldview now. I've already explained my worldview. You can critique it all you want. I'm fine with that. But just answer my question.
On the same page
answer my question from Nina's worldview, from what Neeina thinks in Nina's fucking brain. If Alex puts on blackface and he claims that he's
putting on blackface does not make you black.
Okay, it doesn't make you black. Awesome.
Putting on blackface does not make you black. Yes.
Okay, so Alex, if he identifies as being a black man and put on blackface, would not be telling the truth, right?
That he identifies as it, or that he like
he is. He is it. That he is it.
Is
that he is that thing.
But that's what I'm saying. That when it comes to like what's important of what your definition.
Okay, let me. Okay, I'm gonna clear this up because we've been going circles for half an hour. Okay, the hypothetical that I think Andrew's trying to create is this. Let's say that I identify as black. I have zero black ancestry, zero anything like that. I put on blackface. I start dropping the N-bomb. I start applying for like affirmative action type of shit.
Okay, but why would you do that?
Let's say I want to. Let's say I really want to be black, and I just want to do it, right? And I identify as black.
Then you're not.
Maybe I feel way more in common with the black culture. Maybe I love rap. Maybe I love like everything about black culture, right? Would that, in your worldview, make me black? And if not, if I do say I'm black, am I telling the truth or am I lying? That's the question.
If you're to like answer the question to somebody that you're
Listen,
black,
she can't answer the question. It collapses her worldview, Alex. It can't be. It's going to be impossible.
I know you like to talk, but like
to get Neeina to answer. So just say yes or no, Neeina. Yes or no?
I literally just said no.
No, he can't be black. So then he would be lying if he made the statement that he was.
That he's not black. That he was black. I would assume. I guess. Sure.
Okay, so if that's true, then you can apply this to gender now, and tell me why it is that a man who's saying that they're a woman is telling the truth.
What do you mean? Are they saying that they are able, like that they're a biological female, or are they saying that they're a woman?
A woman is biological female. That's what people associate with woman.
Okay, but this is where we have the gender conversation here.
Yeah, but this is exactly applicable to the conversation we just had before.
Oh,
my contention is that they're lying. They're lying because they can't be those things based on both biology and the social makeup of who we would put inside of those groups due to their biological struggle under Nina's worldview. So they can't be telling the truth, Neeina.
Okay, so would you say that if you're so like upset about that phrasing for some reason of like thinking that women just means biological female, what do you think of the term trans woman?
Well, trans woman indicates men who have a mental illness called gender dysphoria.
What? Okay. Like, what do you mean? So you're okay with the term trans woman?
If it's to describe, if the descriptor of trans woman is not to describe a biological female, but rather to describe males who have a mental illness, which makes them just like want to pretend to be females, then I'm fine. I'm fine with using that terminology. But the second you try to interchange it and say that they're
they'd
women,
still be women then, right?
No, they wouldn't be women. They'd be trans
Okay,
women.
so, but right, they'd be trans women.
That was
so
not
are black
a woman.
Women not women?
Black. Okay, so first of all, you don't need the additional descriptor. So black women are just women. You're just woman. All females are just woman.
All women.
Trans woman would indicate the people who do not have the biological functionality to be considered adult human females.
Describe. Okay, so just what about a firewoman?
Mm-hmm. What's a firewoman?
Like
a woman who's a firefighter?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were going to say, for the purpose of the conversation, women who are biological females who are also firefighters, we call them fire women. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so you are okay with the term then, like trans women?
As long as the descriptor of it is describing this specific phenomenon of a mental illness called gender dysphoria, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so you're just really married to the term, the mental illness aspect of it. You know what? I think that's fine. I think we'll take that from you. That's as progressive as I think we're ever going to get you. But I think that's actually interesting in that you're willing to engage in that. I think.
But they're not women. They're men.
But why do you call them women then?
I'm not calling them women.
You're calling them trans women, right?
I say the word trans. If they make the delineation and trans woman becomes synonymous with man with mental illness, male with mental illness, instead of I am biological female, I'm fine with that distinction. Yes. Okay. If trans woman is synonymous with male with mental illness, do you think that trans woman then is synonymous with male with mental illness?
My personal definition of that, I don't think that being trans is a mental illness, no, but I think that that's okay that people can see it that way if we're going to make, some progress with that, because I think there are elements of what is considered mental illness that we can go into, whatever, like having, there is a lot of subtlety conversation about transness that like non-binary people could also be considered, trans. So
everybody's
I'm actually
non-binary.
Curious on you.
It doesn't mean anything. It's just made up tripe.
Everyone's non-binary.
Yeah, it means nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
So maybe I should ask you, what are your pronouns?
Label. It's a meaningless label.
Would you be offended if I called you she?
Yeah, well, that would be a false statement. So it wouldn't be an indicator of truth.
Okay, why?
Because when you say she, you're referencing an adult human female, as opposed to an adult human male, which would be he. The reason that those distinctions are made is so that we don't make false statements. So
you wouldn't like being misgendered?
Yeah. Well, it's not a misgendering. It's actually far simpler than that. It's a descriptor which is inaccurate because it's a lie. It's a descriptor which is inaccurate because it's not indicating truth. There's no truth that it's indicating. So it would be inappropriate to use it. It'd be like if I said, Neeina, that guy Neeina is super weird. That guy's fucking dumb, right? That makes no sense because the indication there is that you're a male, which isn't true. It's obviously not true.
Okay, but as somebody who identifies as non-binary, I don't care. You could absolutely say that.
But the nuance here where you fucked yourself is you said that a simple self-identification with an empty label isn't enough. There has to be an indication of some sort of actual physical reality which goes in with it. Otherwise, you would be able. Well, you actually had to concede that that's what the black question was about.
we're not talking about.
I know we're not talking about it directly, but it's analogous across the board, Neeina. So it would be inaccurate for me to say that. And if you say I'm
analogous?
because if you say that in that people group, the indication there that Alex can't be black is based on the fact that he doesn't have the requirements biologically nor socially to be black. And so you don't have the requirements biologically or socially to be a male. You don't have those requirements. So me calling you a descriptor indicating you're male would be inaccurate.
How do you know I'm not a trans woman?
Because you've publicly stated you're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put you together on that one?
Yeah. Okay. Well, gee, Neeina, do you have a penis?
Does it matter what I say?
It matters. One's a lie and one's the truth.
Okay. But.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you a liar?
Yes. Sometimes.
Sometimes you lie? So should I even take anything you say? Should I take anything you say at face value? Are you going to lie to me? It doesn't matter.
Like do you just assume that I don't, or what?
Yeah, we're able to make societal assumptions based on just like we could make the social assumption that Alex isn't black. There's a reason.
Okay,
for
have
that.
you ever seen a really butch lesbian?
I have, yeah.
Do you think that the fact that a lot of like women get like or a lot of butch lesbians get like harassed in women's bathrooms because they think they're trans women? Does that
by a lot you mean almost none ever? Is that what you mean by a lot?
Almost none ever. If we're talking about like statistically, yes, a very small amount.
Yeah,
yes,
very small amount.
Okay, but it doesn't matter. The point is that like it's indicative of the fact that you probably can't really tell, right?
There can be certain instances where a magician's trick can trick the eye, or where a person's eye can be tricked where they can't tell. There can be instances of that, yes, but that really doesn't mean anything. There could be an instance, for instance, where you had black men who did a movie called White Girls, and they dressed up like white girls for the purpose of this movie. And the special effects were so realistic that it's possible that they were walking down the street and were treated like white girls. It's possible. Because it happened. That actually happened, right? It happened.
Okay.
Two black comedians were dressed up like white women.
No, I am familiar with the movie, yes. How do you not understand that the expression that we show ourselves is indicative? Like, when you like say she, her, he, whatever, like, are you saying their dicks or pussies? Like when you say it, like I don't understand like how.
Of course we make the association with that because it's biological.
The only way that you
the reason men want to breed with women is because they have a vagina.
No, but are you on the street? And you're just in like a store, right? And you're just like walking down the aisle here. Are you, and you see somebody who like is presenting very, very feminine. Like, do you really know?
You can be tricked.
A biological woman?
You can be tricked the same way that a black person who looks exactly like a white person because they put on all sorts of makeup and Hollywood special effects, that can trick your eye, but it's not an indication of truth.
Do you think
it's not indicating what's true? Yeah, cool. I just gave you an example of that. It's rare, but so is the phenomenon you're talking about.
No, you're talking about a movie, my guy. We're not talking about like what do you mean who cares? Like the reason why that they're doing that in the movie is because they're filming a movie. If somebody is a trans woman, it's that they identify with and want to be perceived as a woman.
Right. So they want to present a non-true state. They want to present a non-true statement to get you to trick your mind into believing there's something they're not, just like those moviegoers did, just like the movie producers did. There's no difference. There's no distinction.
Okay. What did they get out of it? Let me.
They have a mental illness.
What did they get out of it?
They have a mental illness.
So they don't have to get it to trick you.
You can't apply reason to people who are mentally ill because they're mentally ill.
So you don't have any reason to believe that. You're just saying that they are mentally ill. So it seems like you're kind of mentally ill, that you just think that
the DSM
all people are just trying to trick people.
Ill. The DSM-5 calls people with gender dysphoria mentally ill. Not me.
It's considered a mental illness. They're not like considered like needing to be.
That's right. It's considered a mental illness.
Yeah, that can be treated with gender affirming care.
Right. So lying to them.
lying to them. That's adorable.
Well, so let's turn it around then. If that's
so you
not
think
the
like
case,
somebody who has a
hang on,
mental
if that's not
illness.
the case, let's find out if you're telling the truth or if I'm telling the truth. If the
think this is
DSM-5 put in a prescription saying that people who struggle with racial dysphoria, let's say in this case Alex in blackface,
okay, shut the fuck up. I'm not dealing with this.
Best
You're
treatment
so
for
off
him,
the rails with this.
that the best
That's not what we're
treatment for
talking
him,
about, my guy.
Neeina, and that the best treatment for him was for us to affirm his race, even though it might upset everybody else in the black community. Should we do that?
Is it statistically going to lower the significant amount of like suicide rates?
Absolutely.
I would consider it. Sure, we'd have to know the facts on that.
You would consider affirming it, even though it upset every black person on planet Earth who says, "No, that person doesn't have my shit."
Like you're the one that gets upset about trans people. I don't care about your opinion. I want trans people to have fucking healthcare, okay? Because it makes them feel better, and it doesn't affect you.
Well, hang on. In this particular
case, blackface is that obviously it has racial undertones. Do you think that that is the case when it comes to gender affirming care?
Yes.
Racial undertones. Do you think that the N-word has the same effect of other slurs?
It has sex undertones. So the thing is that you want
sex undertones. So a historical interpretation of how they've been.
Do you want so Christians are the overwhelming majority of the United States, and you're asking them to lie in order to make people feel better? But you would take. Do
you understand that Christianity is a lie?
You would take black people's feelings into consideration.
Like religion is a matter.
Religion
is a fucking lie, dude.
Whether you think it's a lie or not, we're just operating off of feelings here.
They're not against trans people, so I don't know what you're talking about.
So yes, yes, they are, but I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway,
right?
back to what I was saying. You would take the entire consideration of the black community into account and say it does actually more damage to affirm Alex's identity as a black man if it causes more harm to the entire black community. But in the case of a Christian person, you would say that's fine. Fuck them. They're liars anyway.
Do trans people affect the Christian community?
Yes, I just told you we have to lie.
They're causing material harm.
The expectation is that we lie. Yeah, that's very harmful
all the time.
to people. It's harmful to people whose values are
lying, so you think Christians having to lie is the same as blackface? The black community.
I think that the ask that a person says something which is not true has the same ramifications on both communities. Yes, because that's what you're doing in both cases.
Okay, so yes, just say yes that you agree straight up that blackface is as bad as asking Christians to lie. So
absolutely.
There's a lot of other things that
100% believe that's true.
Is that your same opinion on like abortion or some shit? Like that's insane.
No, well, just asserting that it's insane isn't an argument.
Okay, so why don't you go in on that? So why is asking to let's assume that it's a lie or whatever. So how is lying the same level to Christians as blackface is to the black community?
Because in both instances, it's simply an emotional response based on something that's not true. So they're directly equivalent.
Blackface was like minstrel shows and stuff like. You understand what minstrel shows are?
No, do you understand?
Where it was literally making fun of.
Do you understand in this context?
The black community, they were used to be black. Them?
We're talking about Alex pretending to be black and you affirming his blackness.
No, you're talking about the black community.
You affirming his blackness because it will help him with like suicidality issues. That's what we're talking about. So if that's the case, right, you're saying it's okay to lie to Alex and affirm his identity as a black man in order to prevent him from suicidality. It's like, okay, that's fine if you say that, and you'll disenfranchise every other black person who says, no, that actually hurts us, right? But you wouldn't give the same affordation to Christians who say we're not going to lie and call men women who put on a wig and have a giant fucking beard women. That's insane.
I don't think that most trans women probably want to do that. That's more of an NB thing. Again, I don't think you understand the subtleties of gender identity, and that's fine. That's expected.
It's just there's nothing wrong with that. For my
I just don't understand what you're
comprehend.
talking about. No, I just don't think it's not like you're dumb or something. I don't think you're a dumb person. I just think that it's like more I think you're really like in the camp of wanting to make these things black and white, and I think that's really unhelpful opinion to have, like just for yourself even. I mean, you have multiple children. What if one of them was trans? How would you feel about that?
They can't be trans. It's an indicator they can only have a mental illness. That's it. There is no such thing as
if
trans
the
outside of
solution,
mental illness.
okay, so if the solution, okay, so if they have a mental illness, right, that makes them maybe vulnerable to like committing suicide, right? And you had a solution to make sure that didn't happen, would you not want to see that happen for your child?
I think that I would do whatever I could to mitigate their health, not at the expense of whatever my personal values were. So would I do anything? The answer
So
would be
your
no.
personal values.
For instance, what if they were a psychopathic serial killer and it made them feel better to kill people?
Okay, but that's not what we're talking about.
Right, but hang on. Should I let them do that? The answer would be no, because it would be a contradiction in values. So if they said the only way that you can actually help your son through this mental illness is to affirm a lie in contradiction to your own values, would I do that? The answer is also no.
Okay, so you're saying if your child was trans and they were really upset that you would not accept them.
That's if they had a mental illness.
I'm asking you, like, just a straight, like, okay, if you think that's a mental illness, that's fine. Let's go with that. That's fine. I don't see any problem with having that
in any way possible
if
that was not contrary to my Christian values. Yes.
Okay, but what if statistically, well, there's not anything against in Christianity trans people.
Yeah, lying is bad in Christianity, Neeina. I don't know if you knew that or not, but we're not allowed to do that. It's a sin.
Okay, I don't really want to engage with the lying aspect because I feel like that's very silly.
But you already have.
Okay, so if you have the choice of affirming your Christian values and your kid killing herself, you're going to go with the kid killing herself or themselves?
You mean if there's a direct, like, you have to violate the sanctity of all of your values or this kid dies? Depending on the mortality of the sin.
I just don't think that's much of a... Okay, so
depending on the mortality of the sin,
if one of your kid lies, like, that's you violating the sanctity of all of your values, just like lying about anything?
Yeah, lying is a sin, yes. Now, there's a hierarchy when it comes to not all sins are equal, Neeina. So is it possible that in my own selfishness, I might set some of those sins aside for my prodigy in order to do something different than is within my value structure, even knowing that it's wrong? I might do that.
Okay, so,
but that doesn't mean it's right to do.
Okay, that's fair. But you would be willing to do that if the lie, because I mean, lying's not like
well,
not
the
really
magnitude
on that high level.
I think that the magnitude of lies
little white lies, all those
is worse often than just killing someone. Lies can enslave an entire population. Lies can convince people that men can be women. Lies can convince people of all sorts of madness.
Okay, so in your mind, how high is the trans lie for you? What level is it? Like the genocide?
Well, that's a complete rewrite of reality. So it's a socially controlled lie. So it's high up there. It's a very awful and horrendous lie that has been perpetuated on the public to state that women, the essence that is woman, which is its own unique thing under God, it's its own unique thing, is perverse to the point where men can just make the claim that they're interchangeable with a thing that gives life to other men is a horrendous lie. It's horrendous. Horrendous.
Why?
I just told you why. It's because it's a rewrite of the fabric of all things that are true.
You're just kind of saying like grand claims. You're not really giving me an example. How do you think it's going to affect the world?
Of my belief in Jesus Christ and my religion and the affirmation of that belief. If you have problems with that and you want to get into transcendentals and get worked there too, Neeina, we can do that too. Whatever you want to do. If you want to question my value structure in comparison,
argue religion, something that doesn't have any basis in anything. Yeah, I'm sure that'll.
Well, I don't want to get into religion. Let's keep it on topic.
Okay, so here on topic, what I'm saying is that yes, the affirmation of what's true is very important to Christians. There are Christians who lie, of course. Nobody is perfect. Okay, and of course, certain lies have a magnitude greater than others in their effect. We're not retarded. We understand the distinctions here, Neeina. What I'm saying is that if you make this radical claim that men and women are interchangeable, that is such a wild claim that you need to present overwhelming evidence that that's true. And all you have is that it's an empty label of a self-ID, which is fucking pathetic. It's pathetic.
Do you think that all men are interchangeable?
Of course, no. There's a separation between what makes me me and what makes Alex Alex.
Okay, so why did you say interchangeable in that context?
Because you believe that men and women are interchangeable widgets, and they're not. They're not interchangeable widgets.
You do like to say that. I don't think I've ever even said the word widget.
I had to affirm it at first debate. I can give you the timestamp. I'll have Lou pull it up right now, and we can play it live if you'd like.
Sure. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
you did say sure.
Your word choice doesn't mean that I go against or absolutely agree with everything you said. It's like you're kind of trying to do like a very weird gotcha. But what I get a little confused at when you're saying like, I know we've had this conversation, or I'm not sure if I had it with you, but you know who Buck Angel is, right?
I do. I know another guy named Buck Angel Groiper, but I won't get into that. No, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to make like the Buck Angel Blair White comparison?
Right.
We can do that.
I still want to have that. Like, okay, so if anyone doesn't know who Buck Angel is, you can just Google it. He's a very jacked man, but to the mind's eye, right? Like, and like just seeing them on the street, you're gonna assume that he's a man because that's the utility of things like gender, right? Where it doesn't really matter what their sex is; it's just how they're presenting.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your?
So you say, you say, Andrew, if you saw Buck Angel Groiper, would you, or Buck Angel? Sorry, not Buck Angel Groiper. As funny as I think that is.
You're obsessed with the Groipers. I'm getting a little worried.
If you think Buck Angel, right? Would I instantly assume that that's a man? Right? The answer would be yes. But so what? My eye can be tricked just like a magician can. So I'll give you a counterexample. If I pulled up right now, hang on. If I pulled up right now, 6 pictures of Labrador retrievers, could you tell me which of them were females and which of them were males?
I don't know. Maybe. Probably not.
Could you do it? Like, honestly, could you tell me which ones are males and which ones are female Labrador retrievers?
Certain dogs have like different aspects of it, but for the reason of just not being annoying, I'll say no.
No, right. You can't. So the thing is the reason that you can't is the same reason that my eye can be tricked at times. It doesn't indicate I'm making a truth claim.
Wait, you're going to relate gender to dogs?
It doesn't mean I'm making a truth claim, right? Doesn't mean that when I say that Buck Angel, that my perception was tricked and I thought that that was a man, that actually is a man any more than the Labrador retriever, right? That you see it just like you just see their head or you just see their body or whatever. You can assume, hey, that could be a male or a female. You don't know. Relationally, you can be tricked. Do you understand that? Like your mind can be tricked, but that doesn't mean it's true.
Okay, but the fact that your mind is tricked, does that not seem to make it seem that you know what general phenotypical characteristics are related to what you assume is a woman?
How it's being tricked. Just the same way that a person can make a quarter disappear or cut a person in half in front of you. You understand intuitively that a saw cutting through a person would kill them. So you're oohed and awed when they pull the thing apart and this person is cut in half, but they're not dead.
You call it witchcraft when you're like watching a magician. Like, who gives a shit that it's a trick? I mean, everything is supposed to be like a. I mean, do you think like makeup is like a trick?
Do you think that you? Of course it is. Makeup is designed to enhance
so why aren't you pissed off
sexuality. And makeup is designed to enhance sexuality.
Okay.
Then why do you wear it?
Do you think hiding like a zit that's like really annoyingly prominent?
Why do you wear it?
Do you think hiding a zit that's like prominent is the same as like wanting to like get fucked?
I'll tell you what. You know what? If it's not about sexuality and how you're perceived by other people, Neeina, go take off your makeup and come back to the camera. I'll wait.
Why? Because you think I'm wearing it right now? Because I just think that.
Let's see what you really look like. Go take off your makeup and sit back down.
I don't care.
You're not going to be embarrassed. Then go do it. I'll take your time. Go do it.
Okay, but the reason I'm wearing makeup is not for that purpose. So
what is the purpose?
Why would I do that?
What is the purpose?
Because I think it makes you look cool.
Well, you think that it makes you.
What's the point of like you wearing this nice? You got a nice haircut. You got a nice shirt. Why the reason you doing that? Are you trying to like hit on Alex here or what?
No, men do things for socially different reasons than women do.
Oh, okay.
You notice that I'm not wearing makeup. I'm not wearing makeup, right?
Oh wait, so are we talking about men wearing makeup or just women wearing makeup?
Well, women are the ones who wear makeup. They're trying to hide their age. They're trying to
men wear makeup.
They're trying to enhance sex appeal, things like that.
They're
Yeah,
trying
and
to hide
sometimes
their
they
age.
do it
I'm not
for
wearing any
similar
face
reasons, but
makeup.
overwhelmingly, women do it for these purposes. So
Over-
go take off
okay,
your
do you have
makeup.
any-
I'll tell
do
you,
you have
you're
any
not going to be
statistic about that?
embarrassed. You're not going to be embarrassed. It doesn't even matter, Nina. Go take off your makeup.
I just
Go
don't
back.
want to do that.
Right.
I don't have to even get up. I have a thing
I'm
over
sure
there.
you.
Who
I'm
gives a
sure
shit?
you don't. I'm sure you don't. But the thing
Is that your dunk? That like, oh, take off your makeup? Like, I don't care.
No, my dunk.
I'm not even wearing face makeup. I'm not even wearing that much makeup, my guy. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're wearing makeup.
My dunk is simple. It's just to say that the indication of the things in which you point to are most often not true.
Indication of the things in which you point to are often not true. Yeah, that was like an absolute non-statement.
It was.
You're just calling me a liar.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You do like to do that.
Only when you're not telling the truth. Only when you're not telling the truth.
Okay. Ooh, I wonder how much gaslighting you do to Rachel, my guy. Like, it's a little worrisome. Do you get mad when she wears makeup outside?
No, of course not.
I think I fucked up my focus. But she's just trying. Why?
Because she would be honest in the statement that the reason that she's wearing it perhaps is to appear younger or to appear better or to have an appearance of a way that was to make a personification of a thing. Well, when you're talking about sex appeal, it's very important for women.
Okay, but okay, so she's wearing it for sex appeal.
I think sometimes, sure, especially for me.
And you're okay, what do you mean sometimes? It kind of seems like it's an all or nothing there with the way you explain it.
Well, I don't think always it's being used for the purpose of sex appeal, but I think it's always being used to hide some sort of reality. Yes.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I think it's fine. Like if you were going to hide a zit, I might hide a zit. I think that that's fine. Okay. But I'm not,
like
but the thing is like all you have to do is make the indication of what's real. That's all I'm asking you to do. The reason I think you're a liar is because every time I point to a truth statement of something that's real, your instant knee-jerk reaction is to tell me, no, actually, you're wrong. And this is blah, blah, blah,
so
and none of it's
this
true.
Is just like straight up gaslighting that you're doing right now. Like we're trying to be like, oh, well, if you disagree with me, that means you're lying. Like, are you fucking serious?
No,
like, with this right now?
No, you're
like, literally, it's like, I just
the
can't
reason
disagree
I think
with you
you're
and have an
lying is
actual
because I can point out the lie. Would you like me to point out the lie? So it's not gaslighting?
I mean, I pointed out multiple times that you saying things that were inconsistent.
Good,
so I'm like, is that really where you're at with it?
Name one.
Like what you said that like literally the reason of going out was just like for or wearing makeup was just to be like sexually attractive.
I think it's one reason.
Then you pivoted to that.
It's one reason of many reasons.
But you said, oh my God, okay.
So back to the lies that you're telling though, which are fucking insane. You say that it's not even directly analogous to say that gender can be equated with transracialism, even though it's the same exact concept. You believe that race is socially constructed, and yet when we apply this as a physical phenomenon to people, you go into panic mode, and you say, "No, we need to have a shared history."
Wait, what do you mean by physical phenomenon? Wait. No, you need to say your terms.
Bro, I'm trying. What do you tell me? You tell me when it's okay for me to talk, Nina. Go ahead. You let me know when it's all right for me to point out your lie.
I just would like you to answer what you meant by a physical phenomenon.
A physical phenomenon meaning a biological phenomenon. There has to be a biological characteristic which ties you into this group. If there's not, you can't be a part of the group. That's what you said.
I feel like you're just using a lot of terms interchangeably that I don't think are consistent with what you mean. But if you want to continue,
well, then
actually, can you give me like 2 seconds? You give me 2 seconds because he's too white. I don't know. Give me 2 seconds. I really need to run to the bathroom. Give me one.
That's fine.
It's that weak bladder, which is part of the phenotypical expression of women, part of their biology that they can't get away from.
Dude, I don't know, man. I used to like nowadays for the last 5 years, I fucking wake up like 5-6 times throughout the night to piss.
What's that?
Nowadays, like for the last 5 years, I've been waking up like 5-6 times throughout the night to take a piss.
Well, you're probably drinking a lot of water.
I am drinking a lot of water. It's probably because I'm black, though. That's probably
it. Yeah,
black thing,
that seems fair.
Yeah, we were stuck on the black thing for like 40 minutes. I was like, Jesus Christ, like, because I knew exactly what like analogy you're trying to make. I picked it up like the first time you said it, but yeah.
She knows. Look, Nina understands. Just that her worldview can't account for it. So you end up with all these red herrings trying to chase you down different obstacles. It's very common. Very common when you're talking to leftists. Their worldview makes no fucking sense. The feminist worldview makes no sense. None of these fucking people make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just true. I don't know what else to say. That's a true statement. So we'll wait for Neeina to come back.
I'm so sorry. I needed to pee since we began, and I should have done it beforehand. My bad.
We're
gonna call this the had to pee cope.
Okay, you can if you want.
No, I'm done. I don't know where else we could possibly go with this. Like, you've basically affirmed my worldview every which way it could be affirmed. So I don't know what else to say, really.
Let me, unless you want to say something, Neeina, I'm going to pose a question to both of you.
Go ahead.
What is a woman?
I think a woman is just anyone that identifies as a woman.
That's an infinite regress. You can't actually think that.
Plenty of things you can. What is a chair?
That's an infinite regress. Well, a chair has an indication of trying to portray information. So what information are you trying to portray by saying that anybody who identifies
is a couch a chair?
I think you could make kind of this broad description that any particular thing that you, in the case of a chair or any type of social descriptor, has its limits. But I think that the way we know what a chair is by ruling out everything that's not a chair. So the thing is that this occurs with almost everything. But when you say a woman is anybody who identifies as a woman, you're entering into an infinite regress because you're not giving us any description of what a woman actually is at that point. So, for instance, if I said, what's a Lakers fan? You would say somebody that's indicating somebody who watches their games and goes out and or watches them on TV and knows the team and things like. So it has some information which is being pointed to with the description, saying what information are you pointing to in your description of anybody as a woman who identifies as being a woman.
Okay, but if using your argument about the teams, right? If the characteristic of somebody identifying as a Lakers fan is that they, have these certain social behaviors, why could that not apply to somebody identifying as a woman doing those same social behaviors that we relate to being a woman?
Maybe it could, but that's not what your definition is.
Appealing.
That's not your definition. Your definition is anybody who identifies as a woman. That you didn't say a woman, somebody who dresses up like this or does this. You just said anybody who identifies as that. That's like saying, what's a Lakers fan?
What is the definition?
Hang on.
No.
Okay. It's like saying, what's a Lakers fan? And somebody says, anybody who identifies as a Lakers fan, right? It's tautological. It makes no sense. You're saying literally anybody who says this thing.
But you just described a lot of characteristics of people that are Lakers fans.
Right. So I didn't just say somebody who identifies as a Lakers fan.
Okay, so who is a fan of sports? Who's somebody, how...
So the information that you're indicating there are people who do X, Y, and Z. That's how you know that there's something there. In other words, so like if I say what is a chess player or a chess fan, the definition that I would give is somebody who watches chess or somebody who plays chess or somebody who does these things. Same thing. So
the broader concept of sports.
Yeah, the broader concept
would be. What does that mean?
It's an indication that they're playing sports or watching sports or doing something with sports. So there would be some type of definition that was indicated. They're not just identifying as that. So if I were to say, what is a sports fan? You say anybody identifies as a sports fan. It gives me no information. It's just an empty label.
But what do you mean? Like, we're talking about somebody who's like a fan of sports, like,
which would indicate other information.
Label. We still use it. It still implies something, does it not?
Yes, it does. It indicates other information, which is why you would not identify sports fan as anybody who identifies as a sports fan. You would identify it as like people who watch sports or play sports or do things with sports. You would indicate information. It wouldn't be an empty label. An infinite regress would be you saying anybody who identifies as a sports fan is a sports fan, because then I would say, well, what's a sports fan? And you would say anybody who identifies as one, and on and on and on. It becomes so tautological. In fact, I can mathematically show it to you that it just is referencing itself over and over. It gives me no information.
Right. So you saying sports fan does the exact same thing, but again, like
No,
if we're
it
gonna
doesn't.
use that
I just
example,
point-
like
I
if you're
just
just
told you
saying
how it
who
didn't.
identifies as a woman and then like they dress like a woman, they act like a woman, they behave like one, they do voice training to sound like a woman, is that not the exact same thing?
No, I just explained to you. Well, didn't I just give you a descriptor of
Okay,
the
when you just
difference
keep
between an
did
empty
I just
label
give
and a
you that doesn't
definition?
actually do
There's a
anything.
difference between a definition and a descriptor. Okay, so you having an empty label, like for instance, you
Like
say,
sportsman.
my name is Neeina, right? Well, I can't give you a definition of Neena's because it's an empty label. It doesn't mean anything. It's a self-identified empty label. It means nothing. It doesn't give me any information. When I ask you what a woman is, and you say a woman is anybody identifies a woman, what information are you giving me about what a woman is? What are you giving me? What are you showing me? What are you telling me there?
Identifies as a woman.
Yeah, right. It's an infinite regress. It just continuously plays
Well,
off
that's
of
where
itself.
it becomes the social aspect of what. I mean, that's where the main problem comes between the sex and gender aspect of it. To you, it should mean woman or like biological female, right? Because
Yeah,
you said
well,
that
to
gender
me,
is actually the
a
same thing.
woman would be an adult human female.
Okay, so if a trans woman, if woman is an adult human female, then a trans woman is somebody who is
An adult
behaving
human
like
male.
an adult human female.
No, and a trans woman is an adult human male with a mental illness.
Okay, but woman to you means
Adult human
female,
female.
right?
Yes.
Right. So if the trans aspect being that they are going from a male to female, like
they can't. That's a
trans,
biological impossibility.
But you already accepted the fact that trans woman is a form of woman. It's just different, right? But if we're going to talk about the phrase woman, you have to accept the fact that trans woman means a person trying to go into the class of woman to your definition, which is a biological human female.
Right. So it's an impossibility. So when you say
okay,
trans
it doesn't
woman,
matter, but you're relating that
it does
to,
matter.
You still have to accept that though. That's literally your logic.
Not only do I not have to accept it, but it's wrong.
But you said
what you're
trans
saying is
woman
incorrect.
is a fair phrase to use.
For what? What did I say? It's a fair phrase to use for what phenomenon?
To describe trans people.
No, to describe men,
women,
males who are attempting to act like females due to mental illness.
Okay, so they are so you are literally agreeing with what I'm saying, where your definition of trans woman should still mean exactly as you said it was, where it's biological males that are presenting as
so there's information. So there's information with the definition, whereas in your definition of woman's an infinite regress, there's no information. Females. There's no information in your definition. None. Okay, you're not giving me any information.
Definition of that is, to some extent, I don't agree with your mental illness aspect, but it's pretty consistent with mine. So it seems to me that it's really even going to be like.
No, it's not.
Women
you don't have a definition except to say it's the thing you asked me what it is. You're saying, so if I say, what's a rock? You say, well, it's a rock. What's the definition of a rock? Anything that we think is a rock. Well, what is a rock? Anything we think's a rock. But a rock, the thing, what is that? Anything we think it is. You see how fucking stupid that is, Neeina?
I think you're trying to run away from the fact that literally you confirm that trans women are women.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Trans women are women. So
okay, Neeina, one more time.
Trying to run away from that?
If you say,
are you running away from that,
Neeina? No, of course, Neeina. I've already emphatically stated my definition of what a trans woman is.
Okay, so trans women are women. We love that for you. That's
no, they're not women.
Okay,
the definition that I gave you does imply in no way that it's a woman because a woman's an adult human female.
But if it's a qualifier,
adult human male would be the opposite of that.
You said like fire woman was still like a, in your mind, a adult biological female.
Let's break it down.
Just has another qualifier relating to it.
To occupation.
It's somebody
has another qualifier relating to occupation.
Yeah,
but
so
they're
you
actual
can ask
females.
so the qualifier for trans women are, as you said, as much as I don't agree with the mental illness aspect of it, that's fine. But they are biological males who want to perceive themselves as women or present themselves as women who are acting as women. So
what's the distinction? They're not women, because to be a woman, the qualia requires female. So they can't be women.
Behaving in like
how they so who cares if they behave like Labradors? Are they Labradors?
Okay, so
no, answer my question. If they behave as Labradors, are they Labradors?
If they behave like that doesn't.
Yeah.
Are you saying if you're gonna call them like furry, like furries?
No, I'm not saying furries.
Yeah,
I said if they
like furry.
Like they're Labradors, are they Labradors?
No, they're furry Labradors, I would assume.
No, they're not Labradors. Just say no. Just say no. Just try not to lie for once in your life and say no. They're not Labradors, Andrew. They're not.
How am I lying?
Do you think that they're fucking Labradors because they act like they're Labradors?
You can't ask me to just do yes or no questions. You understand the fallacy that is.
You can give me a yes and a no, then a qualifier.
Do I have to ask you that? When did you stop beating your wife? Question. There are certain questions that you need to add.
The answer would be no. I've never beaten my wife. There you go.
No. Yes or no. Yes or no.
I just answered no. I've never beaten my wife.
Wait, no. You can't have the rest of that. You just have to answer yes or no.
I already told you yes or no. Qualifier,
when
Neeina.
Did you stop beating your wife? Do you understand why that question? What that question means?
That's called a loaded question. But unless you can point out, unless you can point out what question I'm asking you that's loaded. Unless you can point out
because
where
you're
my
not
loaded
allowing me to do subtlety. You're not allowing me to do subtlety with my answers.
I'm asking you to give me the yes or no, unless you can point out what's loaded, and then give me your qualifier after the yes or no.
You were asking me literally just yes or no. I gave you my qualifier.
Okay.
I said if you're gonna
up?
compare that to like the like if somebody's like somebody identifies as
Neeina,
or a
Neeina,
lab, like they might be like a lab furry.
Did you wake up this morning?
What?
Did you wake up this morning?
Yes.
Why was that so hard to do? It's almost like when there's not a loaded question.
That question didn't involve subtlety, my guy.
It wasn't loaded. None of the questions I've asked you are loaded. You asked me a loaded question. You asked me a loaded question. So since I'm not asking you,
I'm trying to give to you that you're doing those things to me.
Then what's loaded about?
I'm going to step in for a second. Neeina, if you want to make the claim that he's asking you a loaded question, point out which question you felt.
Yes. Tell me what's loaded about the question.
Well, the Labrador question. Repeat it.
Does it make you a Labrador to act like a Labrador?
Does it make you a Labrador?
Yeah, if that's a loaded question, tell me which part is loaded.
Like,
yeah, I think it's. I would just say no.
Act like a Labrador, but the point is that we're talking about language related to if you're like a furry who like identifies as a Labrador, where you're a Labrador furry, then
yeah, but that's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you about furry. I asked you if you pretend to be a Labrador, are you a Labrador? If
like
you pretend
a literal
to be a T-Rex, yeah, are you a literal dog?
A literal dog? No, of course not.
Right. So the descriptor here for when we say Labrador, when we have a definition of Labrador,
you're talking about behavior, though. That's where I'm
not just talking about behavior. I'm saying that my definition of female has a biological element to it. And so as a descriptor, it indicates something. Your definition doesn't indicate anything. It's an empty label.
Right. No, exactly. But like, okay, to bring it back to the Labrador question, if you behave like a Labrador, nobody's going to necessarily assume that you are a literal dog, but to some extent you could be in the furry community. Maybe I'm going too in the weeds with that one, but like your behavior could still get across something that you're trying to get across, right? Like, I don't think everyone should just like identify as like furries or like that's like the same identification as like somebody who's like doing like their gender identity.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'm just trying to use like the language. The language is if somebody is behaving in a way, they still might want to be identified as such in a particular environment. It doesn't mean that necessarily like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so there's some things here that I agree with, but when we're talking about descriptors and definitions, if you say to me, Andrew, what's the definition of a woman? I say it's an adult human female. Then any qualia where you attribute woman from now on, the qualia female has to be included, right? Because that's what it means, adult human female. So if you say fire woman, it's going to indicate female every single time. If you say, fucking, I don't know what else. Whatever you put in as woman, it's always going to make the indication of female because that's definitionally true. Definitionally true. In your case, you're saying a woman is anybody who identifies as a woman. That doesn't give us a single bit of information as to what a woman is. It's just an empty label. In fact, the trans community has moved away from that because they know it's an empty label.
Right. I mean, I don't disagree that there is a emptiness to the label. Like, I don't care. I didn't disagree with that at any point. I'm just saying that if we're going to use the phrase trans woman, the qualifier within that is where that becomes important. Where you're saying that it's the same, right?
Well, I'm saying if you make the claim trans woman, right, necessarily you're trying to make the inclusivity of female in woman, right? But the term in this particular case means man who is trying to pretend to be female, male trying to pretend to be female. That would be trans woman, my definition.
Okay, so what's the problem with that? Like, you're still saying the word trans woman, so like, what, you don't add like the qualifier there? Like, I don't understand. Like, well, if you're using the phrase trans woman, like, yeah, the woman part maybe just doesn't really apply that severely. I mean, it does if we're talking about like trans woman versus trans man, but it's like, it's more of like the first part is the more important part, right? Do you disagree?
Trans, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be the indication that there's something there that's not woman. So it means something different than female.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that again, like, that's actually pretty trans inclusive, that I have no problem with that. I think that's basically what most trans people think.
It's not what most trans people think.
It's not. No, they're very different positions.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of like discourse in that. It's a new
but
conversation.
If you'll concede that's true, that we're indicating something that's not a female, and you're willing to concede that, I'm willing to concede it too.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think a trans woman is a biological female. Absolutely.
And can never be. Right?
A biological female?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Was that even an argument?
Well, no. I mean, if it's just a descriptor of what is.
Wait, did you think that I thought that
I'm fine with using that as a definition?
I thought that trans women could be biological females.
But the real question is to go one step farther. Can that biological woman ever actually be a man?
Well, it's the same question, just in reverse.
Not in the biological. We're not talking biological. We're talking about like a man in terms of gender identity.
Yeah, but we already covered this, right?
Yeah. You're just thinking in reverse. Yeah, I don't see the difference here.
If you guys are satisfied, I'm cool. Do you guys have anything else you want to discuss before we get to closing thoughts?
Yeah. So I don't have anything I want to discuss short of closing thoughts. No.
Neeina?
I'm okay with moving on. I think I don't have anything off the top of my head.
All right, cool. So let's get into closing thoughts. Let's keep these like, I don't know, like a few minutes, maybe not too long, but yeah.
Well, Neeina, you open first, so I'll close first, so you have the last word. I think that's fair.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah. So this is an example of Neeinamoids once again being inserted into a conversation where our it's funny too. I think Neeina must be a dog mom, right? That's the only way I can associate it, right, with the consistent wine sipping as she does the debates. It's like usually you would apply that to like a soccer mom, but maybe in this case a dog mom. Neeina has no idea what the fuck she's talking about. She never has any idea what she's talking about. I don't dislike her as a person, right? Just think that she needs to educate herself a bit more on some of these different kind of different conversations that are going on in the political spheres. This one's particularly important when we're talking about gender. It's a bad matchup all around. Neeina is always welcome on the Crucible. I've always enjoyed having her on this kind of thing. I'm just saying, ultimately, it's a bad pairing, bad matchup because honestly, Nina's just not smart enough to debate with me. It's not really a dunk on Neeina. It's just the way that it is inside of this space. There's only certain people who are even smart enough to step in the arena with me, and she just happens to not be one of them. So my suggestion in the future, Neeina, is like maybe join the Discord to get some great debate experience or something like this. You honestly have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And you just kind of insert psychobabble after psychobabble. And I have to untie all that shit before I can move it back to the point. Even though I feel like you know what the point is, I'm okay with that. I feel like that's just kind of traditional leftist discourse when it comes to the general indoctrination of people who are infected with these Neeinamoids. So the Neeinamoids are real. They do get inside of leftist women's heads. I am the cure for the Neeinamoid. You saw it happen in real time right now. Her worldview collapsed and she conceded to mine. That's step one before you move on into replacing that worldview with something that's worth a shit. So this is what I would say needs to happen more and more and more. And that's why I'm always happy to have these conversations, regardless of who it's with. I'm always happy to do that. So I do appreciate you coming in and engaging, Neeina. I'm just giving a descriptor of what is. So I hope you don't take it too personally. That's my closing statement.
All right, Neeina.
Fair enough. It's good that the consistency of just doing odd personal attacks. I don't really know how to apply. I think you're right that I need to educate myself on things because I have a very positive view, and from California, like of people's values, where I think that they would be more interested in freedom. And I need to be educated on your opinion that is incredibly bigoted. And because I am way too charitable. And you're correct in that I do need to be educated with like how insane people are and how ridiculous your stance on wanting to, you basically said that you were okay with your child committing suicide because it would be a lie for you to affirm them. So I think I'm okay with where I'm at with that. Very interesting that you continue the personal track of the Nemoids. I think that's like mega cringe, but if it goes off for you, that's fine. I am absolutely confused on your world position, and I'm grateful that I'm able to like have these conversations because I agree. I do need to have them with people who have such like insanely different points of view from me because I think it is something that's incredibly helpful. I do always love talking to you, of course, but I don't understand why you're saying that my worldview collapsed because I don't feel like that happened. I think that we were just not understanding each other, and that's where I think is very valuable for us to have these conversations because you are just like in so much of a different mindset than I am, and not necessarily that like that's either directly a good or bad thing. Obviously, we talk about contentious topics, but I don't understand the way that somebody like you thinks. And I think it's really helpful to understand that as well, because I want to get better at being able to know how other people think because I am way too charitable. And I think that you just are actually kind of a mean person. And that's fine. I just need to get through my head that I should stop being so fucking charitable with this type of shit.
Are you gonna cry, Neeina?
But in general, I think that.
Are you gonna
Did
cry?
I interrupt you? Did I interrupt yours?
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
Wow, seems like you're a little upset about it. No, I know that that's something that you think that leftists get really upset about, but I really don't give a fuck. Like, it's fine. It's just interesting to me. I do think your background looks fantastic with the brick. I would suggest using that more besides the green screen. And we love that for you. But no, I'm totally down to talk anytime. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. And good to hear from you as always.